We're talking about vocals today.
Got Tobias Sammet here from Avantasia. One of my viewers was saying, hey, you gotta check out this singer, Tobias, because I'm always talking about on my channel mixed voice and expanding your range and singing freely high. And one of the main things that I teach is cry or twang to try to teach people to lighten up as they go up. And the sound you just made, that's like that's a gateway sound for that kind of freedom up there. And so I really wanted to start out by asking you, I mean, you sound highly trained. Talk about your vocal training over the years.
I had vocal training. I had a classical vocal teacher when I was very young, at 17 or 18 years. I sounded like a horse frog back then. And I don't know what a horse frog sounds like, but anyway, it was really bad. And she was good, but she came from a completely different background. And she was telling me how to stand and what to do with my end. And so, the voice box wouldn't come up when I was singing higher stuff, and it was really a bit odd, because I thought, this is not the reality, even though it's going to give me some basic knowledge about what I'm doing. Then I quit and did the try and error thing again for a while, and then I was I got a vocal teacher. I took some vocal lessons from a rock singer.
Yeah,
and again, it gave me some knowledge and something to work with and something to understand what's happening in my body. But I have to be honest, most of what I do based on intuition, because you know what vocal teachers are like. They tell you how to stand with your both feet and have a loose body tension, both feet, parallel next to each other, and then stand like that, and then and then make sure the vocal box doesn't come up, and keep your tongue, down in the bottom of your mouth, the floor of your mouth, and all these kinds of things. But that's not the reality when you are on a stage. You're a singer.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. It gives you a basic idea of what's going on, but it's got not much to do with reality of a singer on the road.
No, and a lot of those instructions cause tension that you're trying to get rid of, because you're trying to follow all these directions at once. Larynx down. Are my feet the right length apart? What are my shoulders? Like, you're thinking about everything but just experiencing your voice. And so those kinds of instructional pieces of advice, they almost work against what they're trying to get you to do.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I remember is and that's one of the best things to remember, is that babies don't lose their voice from screaming, because babies don't think about how they scream and what their shoulders look like when they scream and what their feet look like when they scream, what their tongue is doing in the vocal box. Babies just scream naturally, and they do it in a way that they're quite enduring. I can tell you, it can last forever, and they don't go hoarse. They just scream and scream and scream naturally without thinking about it. And I think as long as it doesn't hurt, it can't be too wrong. And that's quite the work ethic that in the studio. It's a different thing.
Absolutely.
Because in the studio, sometimes if it hurts in the studio and you get a certain vocal sound, that's fine. But on the road, if it doesn't hurt, it's not too bad.
So, at what point did you figure out that you could sing high for a long time, and you found that crow and twang sort of sound, and were able to carry that melodically? Did you find that in the studio? Did you find that screwing around live? What did you?
I don't know. A lot of what I did was, as I said, try and error. In the beginning, when I started singing, because I have to say, I became a singer when I was 14 in the band Ed Guy, the other band that became my thing. And so I was jumping in at the deep end. I was made jump in when I was 18 years old. getting on our first tour bus, going on a first tour, not being trained, not being prepared for this. And the human voice naturally is not made for, singing extreme vocals 5 days a week under in bad conditions, 2 hours screaming, run to the hills type of vocals.
Right.
The human voice is basically made to scream, attention, mammoth behind you. And that's what the human voice was designed for originally, I think. So I just did it, and I have to. Some of the first tours we've done were really, really connected to being afraid. That was it's engraved on my mind and on my memory that I was really scared for the most parts of it. Because you're always, as a singer, you're the weak link of the chain. You're always afraid of losing your voice, and it puts a lot of pressure on you. And the more pressure you feel, the less good you sing. So in the beginning, we had those demanding vocals on the record, and I was scared. I had to deliver them every night on stage. And I think it took a couple of tours and a couple of years to get more relaxed. And I think the more relaxed I am, the easier it is to reach high notes and of course there will always be bad nights where a vocal teacher would tell you, oh, you can't sing with a cold like that, it's going to do harm to your voice. Yeah, but if you take a look at the books of your tour and what it's going to cost you to cancel the show, you're thinking twice of what it's going to do to your voice. You just go on and do it, and do basically whatever you can with what you have left in you.
Yeah.
At a certain time in my life, I was afraid of losing my voice. It was probably a mental thing because my voice was there. Uh-huh. And I was sent to a hospital for 3 weeks, and they did vocal exercises with me. Okay. And they filmed, the flaps. And is it called the flaps? But what they do, say, sing an E. How the fuck am I going to sing an E with a camera down my throat?
Yeah.
But those kinds of things. And they told me, Mr. Sammet, your problem is you're pushing your speaking voice down. You have a higher voice. Mm-hmm. So if I would speak the way they suggest, I would know. But I was pushing because I have a high voice, and I don't know if that was a youth thing, that I wanted to sound more mature and therefore choke like that a little bit. But that was the thing, and my voice is pretty high naturally. So if I don't do harm to it, it functions.
So if you embrace a natural pitch basis for your speaking voice, that helps save your voice. And then over time, with just having to go out there every night singing these demanding songs, you learned placements and methods with your voice, including the lighter crow and twang sorts of things that were getting you through the night any way you could. And then that became things that you worked into your voice in an artistic way, not just because you kind of had to get through the night.
A lot of what we do is we have to learn to work our ways around around difficult territory at nights. And I once had a conversation with Bruce Dickinson where I asked him straight away, that was a long time ago, I was very young, I was very blatantly asking him, were you ever afraid of losing your voice? And he said, yeah, during the era of, I don't know, when Iron Maiden did Seventh Son or something, he said, I had big problems, and I found out that I should be happy if I can deliver 80-70% every night of what I did on the record. And that put so much pressure off my shoulders, so much weight off my shoulders, that if you don't aim for 100% every night, which it's unprofessional to even go for it, because rock singers work under very, very difficult, it's aggravated circumstances. It's really difficult conditions sometimes, and that's why I think we should find our ways to circumnavigate certain areas that will give us a hard time on stage. And that's what basically what I do all the time.
So how do you, in light of your experience with vocal coaches and sort of not resonating with that approach at all. What kinds of routines do you have for warm-up, for vocal care when you're not on stage singing? We'll talk about the studio in a minute because I have all sorts of questions about that. But in terms of live, like what are you doing to care for your voice before and in the down times?
I think the most important thing on the road for me is a very obvious thing, but people don't think of it, is just don't get a cold. Don't get a cold, because getting a cold it's the Pandora's box. There are so many side effects coming with getting a cold, and it will be with you throughout the whole tour. So just don't get a cold. Don't be too social, which is also a difficult thing. If you're socializing, you may catch a virus. If you don't socialize, you may become mentally quite a nut case.
Sure.
So that's always you have to balance those things out. Then I don't talk after the show. That's very important for me. After the show, let the voice fall asleep. Have a chicken salad or whatever. Maybe not a chicken, and no acid. Acid is very bad after the show, which is also a thing on tour. You haven't eaten. I can't eat 3, 4, 5 hours prior to the show. So you do a 3-hour show. You come off stage, and what do they serve you? They give you a pizza. Great. That's going to be great for the body, for the acid at night. But if you're hungry, if you're ravenous, you will have it, or parts of it. So, but I don't speak after the show, or try to speak very calmly after the show. I try not to speak too much throughout the day of a show when I have had a show the night before. And that's basically trying to catch sleep, not speaking, and then when it's about 1.5 hours, 1 hour to go to the show, I start talking, much to the joy of everybody around. I just start talking to warm up the voice naturally.
That's cool.
And then, of course, you do some of the lip. It depends if the voice is there and it feels. Throughout the years, you get a feeling for the voice is going to work fine. Mm-hmm. Then, as we play 2.5, 3 hours with Avantasia, I do most of the warm up throughout the first 2 or 3 songs, and try to. I will enter the falsetto register a little earlier in the beginning.
Sure.
So later on, I can push a little more, but to slide into the show. And sometimes, if the voice is not there, I'm sitting there and doing these. I don't know what it's called in English, but the lip flapping. And everybody thinks like, what the hell is he? I mean, singers know exactly what it is, but you're walking through. But the funny thing about Avantasia is we have, and that makes it easier for all of us. We are 8 on this tour. We're going to be 9 singers on the road together. 3 background vocalists who also step up to be lead vocalists, and 5 guest lead vocalists, and me. And you have all these singers with their individual routine. And when you come close, when you approach the dressing room backstage prior to the show, it's like you're going to a zoo. Somebody goes, May, May, May. It's really, everybody's doing his own thing. But you learn so much from how everybody deals with the voice.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's really, I was going to ask you about that in terms of specifically Geoff Tate. What's it like singing alongside him?
It's absolutely fantastic, and Geoff. I mean, I always joke that I get vocal lessons from the best of the best, and I get them for free every night on stage in real time. The funny thing is, Geoff doesn't have to warm up before a show, and I'm going to say something. Geoff, if you ever watch this, you know that I'm going to say it. Geoff sings the whole day, and whenever we check into a hotel and somebody needs a lot of sleep, they go, which floor is Geoff on? 7. Hey, tour manager, I want to be on floor 2. Because if you're next to Geoff's room, you always hear Geoff warm up. And his voice is there the whole day. He wakes up in the morning and it's like it may be 7:30 in the morning. And you're sleeping there in your bed like a baby. And you hear somewhere like 3 or 4 rooms away. He goes, la 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 la, love is a better and you hear those kinds of things. And you, what the fuck, Geoff? It's 7:30, you know, my voice is asleep, everybody's sleeping. You hear Geoff sing everywhere. And his voice always functions. And I envy him for him, because you have to remember also he's a baritone. Baritone,
yeah. Sure.
He sings extremely high stuff given the natural sound of his voice. I mean, when he speaks, the earth starts to shatter or to move and rumble because it's so low. Mm-hmm. He's a freak of nature, but I love him. When you work with people like Geoff, he's got such a great control over it. Mm-hmm. You have, and that's something I learned even before I knew Geoff personally, when I was just listening to his stuff, because he's got such a great control over what he does. It's smooth. Everything he does is super smooth. He doesn't ruin his voice. He doesn't, and it feels like it's natural. The way he starts, for a price, I'd do about anything except pull the trigger. That I need a pretty good cause. This for a price. He just box it out in a very, very very natural way. It sounds very smooth. It doesn't do harm, and he does all these things that you can, just by listening, you can learn a lot from him. Mm-hmm. And I think even Michael Kiske, my friend, the singer in Halloween, he was also inspired by Geoff, and he said the technique of Geoff is really. Yeah. But I think even Geoff isn't a classically trained singer. I think Geoff, if you ask him what he does, he's I'll just do it. You know, it makes me envious.
Yeah, a lot of these guys they stumble upon because of the circumstances they've been thrown into. Again, much like yourself, right? I mean, you're having to go out 5 nights a week and figure out a way that your voice can be sustainable and still do the things that you want to do. Theirs is just a different version of your story, and depending on their voice types and the challenges that they've had to overcome, they reach their own version of their best voice. And I think it's fascinating to talk to people in your position and guys like Geoff Tate, because people who are fans or students of the voice, they tend to think about like, oh wow, they can hit that note, or they can do this kind of sound. What did you read to figure that out? What did you, or who did you take lessons from, or whatever? And the answer is almost always what you're articulating for you and for Geoff and some of these other guys. It's, I don't know, I just went out and I had to go out there and do it, and I fumbled around and stumbled on these sounds and these placements and eventually made them feel comfortable so that I could do them night after night. And over time, I realized that I had this voice. But it wasn't something that you checked some boxes and followed this owner's manual and then it was something that you built over time. Yes, there was intentionality behind it, but the intentionality wasn't, I've got to sound this exact way. The intentionality was, I have a responsibility to my art, to my music, to these other people that I'm involved with my art with. I better figure out how to do this. And and so that's what I love about it, is there's intentionality behind it, but there's also this openness, this open goal of you're not trying to imitate Geoff exactly, but you are learning from him, and you're learning and absorbing what he does and how he lives, how he treats his voice, seeps into your own voice, and then there's these unexpected results of I can do this. It's so fun to hear this kind of thing coming from you yet again, as I've talked to different vocalists. It's great.
Yeah, but it's as I once spoke to Jorn Landy. I don't know if he's also been singing with us many times. Maybe we'll do so again one day. A great natural voice he's a natural, and he sounds a bit like Dio or David Coverdale with a very raspy voice. And I just ask him how are you doing this raspy thing? Because I can sing raspy, but when I sing raspy, it will also, it's kind of abbreviation, and not abbreviation, abrasion is the abbreviation. It's abrasion is there. You can feel it. I can do it as an effect in the studio, but I can't do it on stage. He sounds very, very distorted in a natural way, and he says, I don't know. I just been as a child. I was running through the bushes and singing, just screaming. He's from Norway, and like a true Viking, I was just screaming out, and it doesn't do anything bad to my voice. And and it's again a story of somebody just naturally doing it. And I think that's much. I mean, of course, it's never really bad to have some theoretical background and to understand what happens in your body. But for me, what almost drove me nuts was when they told me that my larynx, is that the right word?
Larynx.
It was supposed to stay down here.
That drives me nuts too.
It doesn't stay here.
No.
It never. No. If I go out, but I don't care as long as I don't get hoarse. It's let it stay wherever it wants to stay. As long as it doesn't come flying out of my mouth.
Exactly.
I'm fine with it. Some people said that I stick out my tongue when singing extremely high notes. And I was watching those videos and I thought like, yeah, you look like Gene Simmons. It's correct. It looks disgusting. I've never seen it that way. And people thought I'd do it for purpose, and maybe I do it for purpose subconsciously, but I don't know. I just do it, and it's good to know some basic backgrounds. But that larynx, it didn't do anything to me. It just moves. I can't help it. If I raise my voice, for a prize, it goes up here. It's almost here. I can feel it touch my teeth. And it is what it is, and I think you have to really sing just the way you perceive things. And what I remember was when I was a young singer and I was facing all these challenges of going on the road, and when I was doing the first gigs, a one weekend and then 2 weeks off and then another weekend show. I was always afraid. I thought I can never sing like that 2 shows in a row. It's never gonna work. It's not gonna happen. Because I knew that after the show I would feel a little bit worn out and tired, and the voice was shot a little. And I had to understand and learn that it's normal, that the voice will get tired. It will not sound completely shot, but it will get tired. And it was just like when I was learning to swim. I thought before I learned to swim that there's a trick about it. I have to do something, a special move, and then that it will be effortless. And when I finally learned to swim, how every move was hard work, and there's no trick about it. No, it's just trying. Basically, the whole thing is about keeping your head above the water and just making this move. And it's a lot of effort. And it's very, very exhausting. And I understand there is no trick about it. It's hard work, and you have to make it work somehow. And if you don't drown for 15 minutes, you have managed to swim for 15 minutes. And the same way I approached singing, and that's also something I realized once I did that tour. I thought, there's no trick about it. There's no magic potion or no button to push. And it will feel effortless, and it will do itself. It is hard work. There are good days. There are bad days. It will never feel like you haven't sung the day before. If you've been out on the road for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 months, you won't feel like you had a week of rest. No, you will feel there is a certain basic strain there. But I don't want to add more damage. I don't want to cause any damage. It is a fine line to balance things out. But if you have the confidence that I try not to hurt myself and I will get through this, people will understand. If I don't do that one line tomorrow night because I have a little bit of a cold, it will work. But it's not like that was the great misconception about singing when I really was looking for a teacher who would tell me which button to push so it would be effortless. It was never effortless. But
that's really cool to hear. Yeah.
But it's really, that's the way I approached it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to the larynx thing because I have several videos on my channel like talking about exactly what you just said. Don't care about what the larynx does. Don't focus on it at all. It doesn't matter what you've been told. There are no shoulds. And that's something I say a lot to students. Don't think about your voice as a list of things you should do. Relate to your voice as a list of things that, maybe not even a list, but as infinite possibility. And then listen to your body. Like, let it do what it wants to do. Listen to your body. Does it feel okay? Yeah, it could feel better. Okay, well, what could you do to make it feel a little better? Does it sound okay? Yeah, it could sound a little better. Well, what could you do to make it both feel a little better and sound a little better? And you keep following those triggers or those signs from your body, and you just keep going. Do I feel like I need to rest a little bit right now? Yeah, I do kind of. Okay, rest. The people get in trouble when they follow these shoulds at the expense of what their body is telling them. They've been told, keep your larynx fixed, make sure it's always low. And so they're always trying to do that. And then they wonder why their tongue and their jaw and everything hurts while they're keeping so much tension trying to figure out whether they should keep their larynx low. And then before you know it, they're compensating in all these other ways that's equivalent to people like limping to try to keep one leg safe. And then before you know it, your back's screwed up. And, so I really like that you've, from someone who's out there, because I'm a coach. I sit in my basement and I teach people how to do this stuff all the time. But from yourself, who's out there, multiple nights a week for multiple weeks a year, saying, just let your larynx do whatever it wants. Just let it float. So I love that. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask you about was, you mentioned earlier that, in the studio, you just kind of do your thing, going for the sound, doing take after take, and then live is a different story. You got to figure out how to create its own art form in live form from what you've done in the studio. I'd love to hear your process for some of the more challenging songs, like how you've gone about adapting those. Like, what's your thought process for adapting those from challenging studio to its own art form live?
Most of the time you find out only after you've done the song for the first time or for the first couple of times, because sometimes you realize, oh, that's a damn difficult song to sing. Sometimes it's not even the extremely high stuff. Some of the extremely high stuff you do with your falsetto, and it's no problem at all. And if the song is in a certain range that's comfortable, and you just have those little excursions to ranges that are sung in a falsetto voice, that's not a problem. Usually, the most difficult songs are the songs that are like completely in the upper chest voice
middle
range, like the middle range, like constantly on a C or a D, like la 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 la. You have those kinds of songs, and that's really. The lyrics usually are a little more sophisticated, but anyway.
See, that's why I thought Creep Show might have been difficult, because when I was singing along with it after I listened to the video, for me, that's in that middle, like upper chest, lower mix range. That would be hard for me to sing all the way through without fighting that temptation to go into falsetto too much.
It's for me, it's still below that transition.
Nice.
Range or that transitional areas. Does it make sense? I mean, it's not. It's still in a very in a comfortable, what I would call a comfortable range. I mean, of course, the chorus is get up, get up. I don't know now. I don't have the right note to judge, but it's still okay. But sometimes when you do a song live, you have to find ways to. And you learn that throughout the song. There will be an occasion when you screw up a certain part, and then usually when I screw up something, when I find out something doesn't work at a certain night, you still have the option of taking your microphone, hitting it with your hand, and pointing at it and looking at the side of the stage to the monitor guy.
Yeah.
And or like make obvious gestures.
Sure.
So everybody knows, oh, microphone is broken. Yeah, of course. And then you pass it to somebody passes back to you. And oh yeah, thank you. And then you continue singing. We all have our tricks.
Yeah.
But that's what I really did that oftentimes as a younger singer. Now, I think I'm happy to admit if I screw up. Screwing up is a very, very, it's part of the whole thing. And I think it's part of authenticity.
Yes.
And it's part of the real thing. So you will need a couple of shows until you know where to circumnavigate certain difficult areas in your song, and also to breathe differently and to sing differently. And I just don't, and that's probably also when you get a little older, you don't take it as a personal defeat anymore if something doesn't work the way you want it to work. I remember during some of the I don't know, it was one of the shows. Was it last year or the year before, when Adrienne was mentally going through the song? I don't know which song it was. One of the songs where she was singing lead vocals, like a skier who would, a downhill skier who would, before the race would start, he would still see he would go down the slope in his mind and think the next curve, and then I'm going to take a right, and I'm going to. So she was going through the song mentally to remember where to breathe.
Oh.
And I thought that's just got to be, where two generations of singers clash. Because I will breathe whenever I feel I need to breathe, and sometimes I'll run out of breath. Sometimes I will forget to sing a line. Sometimes I will have to start to cough. Sometimes I will stumble and the microphone will fall out of my hands. I don't take it so... I take it... I want to deliver quality, but it's not a matter of... I just heard an interview of David Lee Roth where he said, sing as if your life depends on it. And I don't sing as if my life depends on it. It doesn't depend on me singing.
No.
I just want to have a good time. And if I screw up, well, here I am. It's not... That's also a quote of David Lee Roth, but it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. But if you lose, you should make sure you go down with flying colors and look good while doing it.
Well, this sounds a lot like you're so loose, and you're just out there to share an experience with your audience and with your band. And if you're so concerned about doing what is right by the song, you can't do that. And you're probably going to screw up more if you're too concerned about nailing it like the album or whatever, then if you just get out there, like I love that you say, oh, I might drop my mic, I might cough, I might do, and I don't care, because you're just there to be in an experience with everybody. That's great.
And what I found out, and that's also an important part of the whole thing, is I've met many singers, and I'm happy that in Avantasia, the singers are real cool people who are at peace with themselves. But I think one of the biggest problems of singers is not that they screw up live or don't hit a note or don't endure the touring stress. I think, or strain their vocal cords. I think the biggest problem of singers is that some of the singers I've met in my life, they are so concerned about the possibility of failure and the risk of failure that they are nervous wrecks. And I've met so many singers, usually when you're on tour with other bands, and the nutcases are usually not the drummers who just beat things with their hands, and make sure they have a whiskey after the show, whatever. And the guitar players, and usually the nutcases are the singers who just, I think... So many singers I've met in my entire life, the first thing they get, and I've been there, that's why I understand it, but it doesn't make you a better singer on the road. First thing, everybody of those singers, they get up in the morning, not everybody, but many singers get up in the morning on the tours, make noises. Is the voice still there? Is it there? Nobody's robbed my voice overnight.
Fear.
And it's like everybody's walking around, and I've been there. I had this, I don't know what it was, where this shower where you put water in your in your nose. I don't know what it's called, what the medical expression is, like a a nasal shower where you just to clean your I don't know what it's called, but this whole
nasal rinse.
Your throat.
Yeah, sure.
Nasal rinse. Exactly, that's what the word I was looking for. And going around and doing that, and on the first tour we did, and sleeping in anti-allergic bed linen and stuff like that, just because I was afraid. And I'm a bit allergic to dust and to, so just I try to avoid anything that could cause problems.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good to avoid problems, but you will end up being a mental health case.
Yeah.
It will not work. And I've met so many singers who are nervous wrecks. Always like, today, I don't think it's going to work out today. Today, I don't think I'm going to be good. Always excusing, going on stage like, please forgive me, everybody. Today, I'm sad. Stop it. We're human beings. It makes it really difficult for yourself.
Yeah.
Just accept the fact that you're not a robot. You go on stage to share your feelings. If you have something in you that expresses that helps you express yourself, that turns a song into life, no matter if it's like on the record or if it's slightly different, or if you also just show people the precious insight, give them the precious insight that you're a human being, but you go on stage, you give it your all, and you give something that is slightly fractured or slightly not what it is supposed to be.
Yes.
That's honesty. That's the beauty of performing live and true art. And
awesome.
Once you realize that, the weight is off your shoulders, and just enjoy it. Enjoy it. That's basically, I know I'd be a very lousy vocal coach. I know, because I know there are basics you can learn and they will make you better, and you can become much better by taking vocal lessons and having somebody who understands you, who listens, who feels and watches you and feels what you want to say. And if you get support from people who know what they're talking about, it will help you. But I think taking a bit of the theoretical approach out of it, and
I totally agree.
Just do it and make sure it doesn't hurt and it makes you feel good, and whatever makes you feel good, you can endure for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, that's so fun to hear. I want to switch gears now over to the production world, and this you produced, wrote, composed, recorded your own vocals, I'm sure, on this new album, and you've been doing that for some time. I'd love to just hear, we've talked a lot about your live approach, and it's just so refreshing to hear you talk about that, but talk about your methods or your approach in the studio when you're recording a song. And you can include writing in there, like working out the vocal for the studio. Are you one of those vocalists that you write the song and you sing it, you get it right on an acoustic guitar, and then you get everything produced, and then you go in and you try to just sing it? Or do you piece things together and kind of compose and work things out in the studio and write as you're producing?
What I do is, like, usually it first starts with an idea when I'm just playing around on my piano. I'm sitting at the piano and I just play and I sing some gibberish along to it, and at some point I will say, "Oh, that was a great melody. That's great. That's a great harmony. Yeah, that sounds like it's a verse." And then sometimes something develops from there, and you just go on, and it's a lot of try and error. And I record all these little sessions, so to speak, and I will find out, that was good. Let me hear that again. And then I immediately put things together in my head, and okay, this is a great chorus. That's where we come from. So how am I going to bring these two passages together? And I try to play the whole part again with a piano, just with the piano. Everything else I just hear roughly. Sometimes I hear it, but usually the beat of the drums and what the guitars are doing more or less, and the bass. You have a feeling for it. And so songs come together, and then this is where I am right now in my studio. I built myself, or had a company build a studio back in 2000. I mean, I had a recording place in my house before, but in 2020 we built a real studio, and that's where I go then. And it's just 2 doors away from my piano, so it's also in my house and our house, and that's when I start to work things out, to not work things out, but to process the whole thing and try to do a drum demo and some basic guitar demos, and then I send it to my producer to add guitars and to record the drums for it, and with Felix, our drummer, and but meanwhile I have a demo usually which is in the original key, in the original speed and tempo, so I can start singing technically also on keyboards. And usually keyboards are a very, very good tuning reference, much better, oftentimes much better than just a guitar. I mean, it depends. I mean, if you're doing those AC/DC or blues kinds of vocals, you're not so dependent on micro tuning.
Sure.
But certain keyboard sounds will give you a better reference to sing in tune to. And then I record. I don't even have a vocal booth. I do it in the control room, and I have which is a real bummer. I do use a Neumann 67
Oh, cool.
SM67, and also an old vintage V76 amplifier, Telefunken, or was it a Siemens or Telefunken? I have them both. Real old tube amplifiers from the 50s.
Nice.
And a Tube Tech compressor. That's my vocal chain. Now, what I have to say, it makes me it feels really good. It sounds very smooth. But the thing is, last time when we did an album, I think it was the Moonglow album, there were some vocals missing and we were going on a vacation. So I grabbed just an interface and the computer, and I think it was also a Siemens, but one of the not the tube ones, but the transistor,
solid state ones.
Transistor. Yeah, solid state ones, and I threw it into the car and we went there in the hotel. It was a tiled room in the basement of the little house.
Oh man!
And I set up some blankets and just had an SM7B, and I sang the song, and we could edit in those passages with a very expensive recording of the rest of the song, and you didn't hear a difference once our producer was done with it. Which is not to put down our producer, but it was just, he said, "Oh, there's so much sonic information going on, you don't hear the difference." And I said, "Wow!" And I spent all this money for all this expensive equipment and building a studio, and I can record in a tiled room with very basic gear, blankets, and it's the same. And he said, "Yeah."
Well, it's about the performance, right? Like, it's about you channeling the right things from your vocal performance and being in the right mind state, and the gear is secondary.
Yeah, the gear is secondary, but if it makes you feel good, you will sing differently.
That's
and I
true.
still sing. Whenever I sing into my into my
U67.
U67, not SM60. Did I say it's SM67? U67. When I sing into it, I still feel like I'm singing a $1 million production now.
Yeah.
It makes me feel better, but it's essentially it's not much of a difference. But anyway, I don't sing through the whole thing. I try to approach it very naturally, and I never have a plan of what I'm going to do exactly. I get into the mood. I dim the light a little bit, and I sit there and I start singing, and I see what the song does to me. And sometimes the melodies completely change or just start to come to existence during the recording process. It's a lot of it is just flying just by sight and by listening and doing it simultaneously. Sometimes when I sing is when I write the melody. Usually a chorus melody or something is pretty predistinct.
It's wonderful.
I mean, it's it's given. But some of those verses, I will just see what comes out, and sometimes it completely changes. So again, a lot of it is intuitive and not planned at all.
So do you ever comp, sing stuff and then choose different takes, or it sounds like what you do is you more just kind of go till you want to stop and then go back and do something else, and you just kind of step through the song as you write and figure out what's going to happen?
I go through. There's never really a rule. I'm a very chaotic person. And it's sometimes I just, you sing through a song, and I want to have one track where it's basically what I think works.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I will do a second or fourth take, and I will create another track and do the same thing again and say, oh, that's almost good, but it's just almost good. I put this one up here, but this is the main track, and then I do the thing again, and then I compile things. Sometimes I will sing a whole verse in one piece and it works. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, sometimes just a syllable drives me nuts. Mm-hmm. And when I send it to Sasha, like 2 or 3 different versions, he says, like, I can't hear a difference. But that's when you get I don't know the word now in English, but you're too close to what you're doing, so you cannot really judge. You're not objective anymore.
Yeah.
And that's my problem sometimes. So there is no rule really. Sometimes I sing a piece, half a song in one piece, and it works, and I just exchange maybe a screwed up line or something. And sometimes I will sing and say, the first and the third, they were really good, but the shit in the middle that didn't work out. So I have no rule really.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So fun to hear your approach, your playful, exploratory, non-judgmental approach in the studio and live. It's refreshing.
Where are you based?
I'm in Denver. Well, I'm in Colorado, an hour north of Denver. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And, we played Denver once. Denver, what was the place called again? It was a real small club. There was no attendance, but that was not with Avantasia. It was my other band, Ed Guy.
Okay.
It was one of those shows where you're on stage, and that's a big problem. When you're on stage and you're saying, okay, there's 150 people here, and I'm gonna play like we are playing in front of a festival, a sold-out audience of 30,000 people.
Yeah.
But still, when you're doing it, and when you're a little bit, you're under stress, you haven't slept, and there will be a point where you say, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be admitting that, Denver, Colorado. I know back then I was pretending I was the happiest man in the world, but apparently I was not. I was wondering, what the fuck am I doing in front of you? No, no. I mean, that's going to get me some flack now.
No, I'm glad that you said that, because that would be tough. You're spending all this money. You're over in a different country. You put all this effort in, and I'm sure the people that are there appreciate what's going on. But yeah, that's tough. I saw. I don't know if you ever heard of Jimmy Necco from the band Hours.
No, I've never heard of him.
I love that. I love that band. I love Jimmy's voice and everything. And I remember seeing them in this tiny, tiny club in Indiana when I lived there, and it was kind of the same thing. It was a tiny place, and there was hardly anybody there. And I had been, just devouring Jimmy's albums and couldn't wait to see him live. And he got up and he gave that performance to the 60 or 70 people that were there like it was, an arena on a smaller stage, of course. And I got to talk with him afterward. I mean, I love those small shows because most of the time when it's small like that, you do get a chance to actually talk to the actual artist afterward. Yeah. But I really appreciated that about him, that even though there wasn't many people there, he got up there and he performed, and he also, I think because of the intimate setting, took some more time just to like single people out and, hey, you know, where are you coming from? You like reach out and talk to someone in the audience for a second. And I think that's cool too.
When you do those kinds of shows and you're playing in front of 70 people, which fortunately hasn't happened to me recently, but of course I know it, you have to find something that is unique about those shows to you, and that makes it worthwhile. And you have to find, you know, the beauty in it. And the singular aspect of one of those shows is that you have a different relation to the audience, and you can single out people, and you can say things that you usually don't say on stage, and it's more like you're playing for a bunch of friends. It has its own magic, but it's a challenge to appreciate that fact when you've been on the road for 3.5 months and your voice is shot and you say, okay, it's just another 17 shows and then I'm going to go home. And then you say, okay, Denver, what's the pre-sale tonight? Oh, it's 112 people. And then always the worst thing about it is those overly motivated local promoters trying to cheer you up saying, well, it's just 112, but don't worry, it's a Monday night. Usually it's a strong walk-up. People want to hang out and have fun. What the fuck? We're in Denver. It's a Monday night. There's a band from Europe that nobody knows. We have 112 pre-sale, and you want to tell me this is going to look like the Madison Square Garden tonight after the walk-up is in the club. You know, it is. But it can be fun to do those kinds of things, and you have to appreciate them.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for talking with me, and I really enjoy just hearing your refreshing approach to your voice and singing live and the studio. I mean, all the things. And really appreciate you taking the time. I'm excited to check out the rest of the album. I've enjoyed what I've heard so far. You know, this is a vocal channel, so if you had to just leave people with a few sentences of encouragement for people wanting to do their best live and wanting to be as creative as possible in the studio, what would you say to these people?
I would say to these people, if you take advice from somebody, make sure the people you take advice from are in a place where you want to be. Don't take advice from people who say, oh, it's not going to work and it's not going to be this and you're going to do that. If you have respect for those people and they're in a place you want to be, then, you know, figure out carefully whose advice you're going to take and enjoy what you do. Just enjoy what you do, and you will find a way of enduring it and being, you know, having the longevity and you know, hanging in through difficult situations if you enjoy what you're doing. And that's basically all I do. I don't think I have a special talent for anything. I don't think I'm very I'm devoted, yes, but I'm not. I'm ambitious, maybe too, but I don't work myself to death. I just enjoy what I want to do, and if you have a way to express what you want to express with your voice, and you're happy with it, and it doesn't hurt you, then you're on a very, very good track, and everything else will come. Everything else will come. You will meet people who will teach you, or who will tell you, or give you advice.
Yeah.
But enjoying what you do, deriving joy from it, is the key to everything in life, I would say.
That's great, man. Well, thanks again. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck taking this album live eventually. And we'll talk again sometime.
Thank you very much. It was a great conversation. It was very different to anything I've done before, and I really liked it.